Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about application architecture. Application nothing but collection of programs. We are going to call a project nothing but collection of programs. A project will have front end, back end, and database. Application front end will contain presentation logic that is also called as user interface. Here, in order to develop front end of the application, we are going to use some technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, Angular, React. Those things are called as front end tech stack. Those things are called as front end tech stack. So similarly, when we are going for backend development, backend will contain REST APIs and business layer integration layers will be available. DAO layer will be available. DAO layer will communicate with the database. Integration layer, if one application want to communicate with some third-party applications, integration tier. Some people will combine business layer plus integration layer. They will call it as a business layer, or we can call differently business layer and integration layers. So here to develop the backend of our Java projects, we are going to use Spring, Spring Boot, JPA, REST API, JSON, microservices, security, Kafka, Redis, reactive programming that we are going to use. Next, coming to database. Database is a store where we can store the data. Persistent store, which is used to store the data permanently. Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, MongoDB, these are called as persistent stores. Along with these databases, some tools also we are going to use in the project's development to automate manual works. Maven, Git, Log, Log4j, JUnit, Jenkins, SonarQube, Jira, Docker, Kubernetes. There are several tools available. By using those tools, we are going to automate our regular manual work. Along with this, we need to have some knowledge on the cloud platforms also like AWS, Azure, GCP, etc. Next one, architecture types. So for the project, in a project we are going to develop will be used two types of architectures, guys. One is monolith architecture and the second one is microservices architecture. Monolith architecture means the complete project will be developed as one complete requirement. All the given requirements will be developed as a single application. That is called monolith architecture. In the last session, we discussed about what is monolith architecture and what is microservices architecture. Monolith architecture means developing all requirements as one single application. That is called monolith application. If you go for monolith application, maintenance of the project will become very difficult. For small change, whole project we need to redeploy and project will have single point of failure. If you make any small change in the project, the big impact will be there on the project, right? All the functionalities are developed as single project. To overcome the problems of this monolith application, we are going for microservices architecture. So microservices is architectural design pattern which is used to develop our applications, Here, when we go for this microservices architecture, instead of developing all the logics, all the requirements in one project, we are going to develop them as REST APIs. Flights requirement will be developed as Flights API. Hotels requirement will be developed as Hotels API. CAPS functionality will be developed as CAPS API. So all these APIs will be developed as separate projects and they will run in separate servers. These applications which we are developing as APIs, those are backend REST APIs. Those REST APIs may have different databases, may have a single database, depends on the requirement. Front end will be developed as one project, backend will be developed as multiple APIs. When end user access the front end of the application, front end will access our backend REST APIs. So backend REST APIs will contain business logic. They will communicate with the database to store and retrieve the data. So this is called as microservices architecture. When it comes to the microservices architecture, the APIs are loosely coupled. If you want to make changes for any functionality, only that API we will change and we will deploy. No need to deploy all the APIs. Project maintenance will become easy and deployments will become easy and no single point of failure. If a CAPS functionality is down, only that functionality will not be available. Remaining APIs will work as expected. Every API is independent on other APIs functionality. So nowadays, monolith architecture is outdated. Microservices architecture is having more demand when compared with monolith architecture. So in this course, we are going to learn how to develop projects by using microservices architecture with the help of Spring Boot and microservices by using REST APIs concept. So that is our agenda. All right. So now, before going to start the Spring Boot, we are going to work with some fundamental concepts in the Spring framework. So already we discussed what is programming language, what is a technology, and what is framework. Guys, here, framework we understood. So can anyone tell me what is a framework, guys? Can anyone tell me what is a framework? Why we need to go for frameworks? Any answers in the chat box? Please do respond. What is a framework and why we need to go for a framework? Framework means it is a semi-developed software, ready-made software. I can say semi-developed software. Semi-developed software which provides common logics required for projects development. Okay, semi-developed software which provides common logics required for projects development. If we use frameworks will help the developers to write more code, to do more work in the less time. Frameworks will help the developers to implement more functionality in the less time. Frameworks are going to avoid boilerplate code. Semi-developed software which provides common logics. So if we develop a project using framework, then we can focus only on business logic because common logic will be provided by framework. When we use framework to develop the project, we can focus only on business logic. Common logic will be provided by frameworks. That already we discussed. So today we are going to understand types of frameworks. Guys, types of frameworks. What types of frameworks are available? So here, front-end frameworks available, guys. Front-end frameworks available, and web frameworks available, and ORM frameworks available. Okay, guys. So framework is a semi-developed software which provides some common logics which are required for multiple developers. So when we use a framework to develop the project, we can focus only on the business logic. When we use a framework to develop the project, we can focus only on the business logic. How many types of frameworks are available? So here, 3 types of frameworks we can see. First one is front-end framework. Second one is web frameworks. Third one is ORM framework. So here, what is front-end framework? Front-end frameworks will help us to develop user interface. Front-end frameworks are available. So the example for front-end framework is Angular. So what is a web framework? The example for web framework is Struts. What is a ORM framework? The example for ORM framework is Hibernate. Okay, so types of frameworks. Front-end frameworks are available, web frameworks available, ORM frameworks available. What is the purpose of front-end frameworks? To develop, provides logics to develop user interface development purpose. We are going to use front-end frameworks. One of the most famous front-end framework available in the market is Angular. So Angular is a client-side framework, or we can say front-end framework, which is used to develop user interface of the project. Web framework is available to develop web layer in the application, in the project, to develop web layer in the project, to develop user interface in the project, to develop user interface in the project. So for every project, user interface will be available, right? Front end UI will be available. To develop that UI, we are going to use front end framework. Angular is one of the famous front end framework available in the market. Next one, web frameworks. To develop web layer in the project, we are going to use Struts. But currently in the market, Struts is outdated. Nobody is using Struts framework. That Struts framework got outdated in the market. 10 years back, Struts framework having lot of demand. Before the spring, Struts was very famous in the market. Before the spring, Struts was very famous in the market. But now Struts framework got outdated. So now ORM frameworks are available. What is the purpose of ORM? What is ORM? Object relational mapping to develop persistence layer in the project. To develop persistence layer in the project, we are going for ORM framework. So what is the example for ORM framework? Hibernate is the example of ORM framework. So by using this Hibernate, we can develop persistence layer in the project. So earlier, when we want to develop a application, when we want to develop a project, okay, so people use it to work with the Hibernate to develop DAO, that is persistence layer. To develop the persistence layer of the application, we use it to work with Hibernate framework. To develop web layer of the application, we are going to use Struts framework. That was the story long back. So that means by using Struts, we cannot develop the entire project. Struts will help us only in developing web layer. Like controllers can be developed by using Struts. We can capture the data from the form and we can send the response to the UI. We can capture the data from the UI. We can send the data to the UI. That work can be done by using Struts framework. When it comes to Hibernate, by using Hibernate, we can develop only persistence layer. Only database layer can be developed by using Hibernate. By using Hibernate or by using JPA, we cannot develop the complete project. By using Struts also, we cannot develop the complete project. The reason, Struts is only web framework, Hibernate is only ORM framework. So that's where people thought that, array, if you want to develop a Java application, you need to dependent on two frameworks. One is web framework, another one is a Hibernate framework. We need to combine these two frameworks, then only we can develop one project. So here, to overcome that problem, of that integration part, Spring framework came into picture. So to overcome the problems of Struts framework, Spring framework came into picture. Spring is called as application development framework. By using Struts, we can develop only web layer in the project. Nothing but only controllers. To deal with web layer in the project, controllers we can develop. By using Hibernate, we can develop only persistence layer. By using Hibernate, we can develop only persistence layer, data access layer. We can develop only data access layer by using Hibernate. So if you want to develop a project, we need to use both Struts and Hibernate, then only project can be developed. Okay, so here we need to use Struts, we need to use Hibernate, we need to integrate, we need to develop a project. At that time, people are thinking that, array, if we have one framework which will help us to develop the web layer and data access layer, that would be good. That's where Spring framework came into picture. Struts is called as web framework, Hibernate is called as ORM framework, but Spring is called as application framework. What is the Spring, guys? So to overcome the problems of the struts, Spring framework came into picture. To overcome the problems of struts, framework, Spring framework came into market. Spring is called as application development framework. Spring framework is called as application development framework. Spring is called as application development framework. Sir, why Spring is called as application development framework? Whatever the logics are required, whatever is required to develop one end-to-end project can be developed by using Spring framework. Struts is only to develop the web layer. Hibernate is used to develop only data access layer. But by using Spring, we can develop the entire application. The Spring framework is called as application development framework. By using Spring, we can develop end-to-end application. By using Spring framework, we can develop end-to-end application. By using Spring framework, we can develop end-to-end application. But by using struts, can we develop end-to-end application, or we cannot develop end-to-end application by using struts? By using struts, we cannot develop end-to-end application because struts is a web framework. So can we develop one entire project by using Hibernate? Can we develop entire project by using Hibernate? No. Hibernate will help us only to develop DAO layer. Persistence layer can be developed by using Hibernate. That means earlier, if people want to develop a project, they need to dependent on multiple frameworks. That's why to overcome that problem, Spring framework came into picture. Spring framework is called as application development framework. Why Spring framework is called as application development framework? By using Spring framework, we can develop end-to-end application. Spring is called as collection of modules. Spring is free and open source framework. Spring is free and open source framework. Spring is free and open source framework. Anybody can use the Spring framework to develop their applications. Spring is free and open source framework, and by using Spring framework, we can develop end-to-end application. That's why Spring is called as application development framework. Hibernate is called as just ORM framework. Struts is called as web framework. Once the Spring framework came into picture, Struts framework got outdated in the market. Because of the Spring popularity, because of the Spring advantages, Struts framework got vanished in the market. Today, not even 1% of the people using Struts framework in the market to develop the projects. Because when we compare Struts and Spring, Spring is having so many advantages than Struts. That's why Spring framework is having more demand when compared with the Struts framework. That's why Spring framework is trending in the market. Spring is free and Spring is open source framework. Spring framework is developed in modular fashion. Spring framework developed in modular fashion. So that nothing but Spring is collection of modules. Spring framework means collection of modules. So it is framework of frameworks. We can say that. So Spring is framework of frameworks, collection of modules available in the Spring. Spring framework is called as application development framework. By using Spring framework, we can develop end-to-end application. Spring is a free and open source framework. Spring framework developed in modular fashion. Spring framework means collection of modules. So what are the modules available in the Spring framework? So those are Spring modules. What are the modules available in the Spring framework? So there are several modules available in the Spring framework. I'm giving Spring core module is available, and Spring AOP module is available. Spring core module, Spring context module is available. Spring core, Spring context, Spring JDBC, Spring JDBC module, Spring ORM module, Spring AOP module, Spring Web MVC module, Spring Web MVC module. Now, Spring Security module is available. Spring Social module is available. Spring Social is available. Spring Batch is available. Spring Social, Spring Batch available. Spring Batch available. Like that, there are so many modules are available in the Spring framework. Spring Core module is available. Spring Context module available. Spring JDBC module. Spring ORM module. Spring AOP module. Spring Web MVC. Spring Security. Spring Social. Spring Batch, etc. Like that, there are so many. There are so many modules available in the Spring framework. Spring framework developed in modular fashion. Now here, Spring framework will not force to use all the modules, guys. So Spring is very loosely coupled framework. If you want to develop the web applications by using Spring, then you can use WebMVC module. If you want to develop persistence layer by using Spring, you can go for JDBC module or ORM module. Spring framework will not force to use all the modules. Spring is very flexible framework. Spring is very flexible framework. It will not force to use all modules. It will not force to use all modules. Whatever the module is required, whichever module required for our application, we can pick up only that module and we can use it. Based on the requirement, we can pick up particular module and we can use it. There is no force. When we are going for Spring, there is no force that you need to use all the modules of the Spring. Spring framework developed in modular fashion. There are several modules in the Spring, like Spring Core module, Spring Context module, Spring JDBC module, Spring ORM, Spring AOP, Spring Web MVC, Spring Security, Spring Social, Spring Batch. Like that, there are several modules available in Spring framework. So here, if you are going to learn the Spring, it doesn't mean that you need to learn all the modules. You need to use all the modules in the project. So whichever the module is required for your project, only that module you can take and you can use in the project. So Spring is very flexible framework. Spring is very flexible framework. And the Spring framework is versatile framework. Spring is versatile framework. That means Spring framework can be integrated with any other Java framework available in the market. Spring with Hibernate integration, Spring with Struts integration. Spring framework can be integrated with any other Java framework also. That's why Spring is called as versatile framework. Spring is free. That means you no need to purchase the license to use the Spring. Spring is versatile. Spring is loosely coupled. Spring is developed in modular fashion. Spring is versatile framework. Why we are calling Spring as a versatile? Spring framework can be integrated with any other framework available in the market. Okay, guys. Spring is very lightweight framework, very loosely coupled framework, and very flexible framework. And Spring is free and open source framework. That means you no need to purchase the license to use the Spring. Spring is free of cost. You can just download the Spring and you can use it in your project. Spring framework is developed in modular fashion. There are several modules in the Spring, like a core module, context module, JDBC, ORM, AOP, WebMVC, security, social. Like that, there are several modules available in the Spring framework. Like that, there are several modules available in the Spring framework. Is it forcing you to use all the modules of the Spring, or you have a flexible? Is it forcing you to use all the modules of the Spring, or you can use any module based on the requirement? Guys, is it going to force you to use all the modules of the Spring, or you have flexibility to use the modules? Come on, guys. Is it forcing you to use all the modules of the Spring, or you have flexibility to use required modules? you have the flexibility to use the required modules. It is not going to force you all the modules. Okay, guys. Perfect. Spring is a versatile framework. What is the meaning of Spring is versatile? What is the meaning of Spring is versatile? Come on. What is the meaning of Spring is versatile?
Compatible.
Yes, it is compatible with easily. It can integrate with other frameworks. Easily, it can be integrated with other frameworks. Easily, it will be integrated with the other framework. That's why Spring is called as versatile. Spring is called as flexible. Spring is collection of modules. Spring is developed in modular fashion. Spring is free, open source framework. And Spring is called as application development framework. Why Spring is called as application development framework? Why Spring is called as application development framework? Guys, come on. Why Spring is called as application development framework?
Because we can do end-to-end application development.
Yeah, by using Spring framework, we can develop end-to-end application. Can we do end-to-end application development by using Hibernate? Can we develop end-to-end application by using Hibernate?
No, sir, only database connections.
Yeah, by using Hibernate, we can develop only database logics. We can develop only persistence logic by using Hibernate, right? Only database communication logic can be developed by using Hibernate. Can we develop end-to-end project by using Struts framework? Can we develop end-to-end project by using Struts framework? No, Struts will help you to develop only web layer. Hibernate will help you to develop only persistence layer. We need a single framework to develop everything required in the project. That's where Spring framework comes into picture. Spring is a paid framework or Spring is a free framework, guys?
Open source free.
Yeah, open source free. What is the meaning of open source and free?
From Google, we can download freely without payment.
You no need to purchase the license. It is free framework. It is free framework. Anybody can download that framework and anybody can use that framework. Anybody can use it, the Spring framework, to develop the project. Spring is free. Spring is free. All right, good. Now, what are the modules available in the Spring framework? Can you guys tell me what are the modules available in the Spring framework? There are so many modules available in the Spring framework, like core module is available, context module is available, JDBC module, ORM module, Spring AOP, Spring Web MVC, Spring Security, Spring Social, Spring Batch, Spring Data JPA, Spring Batch, Spring Data JPA, Spring REST, okay, etc. Like that, there are so many modules. Every 6 months, every 1 year, some new concepts are introducing in the Spring framework. The current version of the Spring framework is 6.0. The current version of the Spring is 6.0. The current version of Spring framework is 6.0. So we can see that we have the official website for the Spring, guys. Let's go to that, spring.io. Spring.io. This is the official website of Spring framework. Spring.io. Here from the Spring team, this is January at Spring 1. Okay, they have a meeting at that. Microservices, reactive, cloud, what Spring can do. By using Spring, we can develop microservices. We can do reactive, asynchronous, non-blocking applications. We can use cloud concepts. We can develop web applications, security, responsive web, serverless applications can be developed, event-driven applications can be developed, batch operations can be done by using Spring framework. level up your Java code. Nowadays, everything they are using as Spring Boot. Okay, guys. Originally, Netflix Java's libraries and frameworks were built in-house. I'm very proud to say, as of early 2019, we have moved our platform almost entirely over to Spring Boot. So earlier they are using Spring and now they completely transformed into Spring Boot. That is the most demanded technology in the Java community today. That is the most demanded technology in the Java community today. That is Spring Boot. So now earlier people used it to develop projects by using Spring. Now they are moving to Spring Boot. Okay, guys. Spring makes programming Java quicker, easier, and safer for everybody. Spring focus on speed, simplicity, and productivity has made it world's most popular Java framework. We use a lot of the tools that come with the Spring framework and recap the benefits of having a lot of the out of the box solutions and not having to worry about writing a ton of additional code. So that really saves us some time and energy. They will provide you some common logics for you. You need to focus only on your business logic. You don't need to write everything on your own. Spring is everywhere. Now, almost all the Java people are using Spring to develop their applications. Spring is flexible. The main reason to go for the Spring is dependency injection, inversion control. IOC container dependency injection is the most important fundamental concepts in the Spring framework. Spring is productive. We can do more work in the less time by using this Spring. Spring is productive. Spring is fast. Spring is secure. Spring is supportive. We can develop microservices by using Spring, reactive applications, cloud applications, web applications, serverless applications, event-driven applications, batch operations like this. So many things can be done by using Spring. Spring is one of the most powerful and famous framework in the market today. Earlier, we used it to work with Spring directly to develop the projects, but now we are using Spring Boot to develop the application. So what is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot also? We are going to understand in the coming sessions. First, we need to develop few examples by using Spring framework. Then you will get the clarity on what is Spring and why Spring Boot came into picture. First, we need to develop few applications by using Spring framework. Then we are going to understand why Spring, when the Spring is already available, why Spring Boot came into picture, that we are going to learn in the practical approach. If I tell you theoretically, these are the problems with the Spring, that's why Spring Boot came, you may not be able to understand. First, let us develop a few applications by using Spring. Let us see what are the challenges with the Spring. Then we are going to understand the power of Spring Boot. Then we are going to understand power of Spring Boot. Are you clear? Are you clear, guys? So what is the Spring? Spring is application development framework. By using Spring, we can develop end-to-end application. Spring is free framework and Spring is developed in modular fashion. There are several modules available in the Spring framework. Spring is a versatile framework. Spring can be easily integrated with any other framework available in the market. The current version of the Spring framework is 6.0. Spring framework is under license of VMware organization now. Spring framework is under license of VMware. Spring framework is under license of VMware. That is one company. So you can see that. Copyrights. Spring by VMware Tanzu. Spring by VMware and Tanzu. So here you can see the official website of the Spring, what we can develop by using Spring, everything they have listed down. Now, sir, here Spring Boot is available. Spring Boot is not replacement for the Spring, guys. Spring Boot is used to enhance the functionality. Spring Boot is one approach to develop Spring applications very easily. So whenever they develop Spring framework in the 2003, 2004, and today their mindset is not same. So they automated a lot of things in the Spring framework by using Spring Boot. So in the coming sessions, we are going to understand what is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot also. In the coming sessions, we are going to understand Spring and Spring Boot also. Yep. Any questions, anyone? So today people will be on the weekend mode, so I don't take much time of you guys. So we'll continue from Monday. Tomorrow, Sunday, no session. So from Monday, we are going to work with Spring project creation and how to work with that IOC container dependency injections. We are going to learn from next session. Okay. Do you guys having any questions? Who is the founder of the Spring? Sir, earlier, we can say Rod Johnson is the author of the Spring framework. Earlier, he was part of a company called Interface 21. Now it is acquired by VMware. Now Spring is under license of VMware company. Rod Johnson is the author of the Spring. What is a Netflix which used in the Spring? Our Netflix, this Netflix not same. So Netflix is a library which is providing Spring Cloud concepts. Eureka server, service registry, API gateway, some cloud concepts are available. Those cloud concepts are provided by Netflix library. Okay, so what is loosely coupled? What is serverless? We'll discuss in the coming classes. So do we need to install Spring by ourselves? No, I will tell you how to work with the Spring. You don't need to do any installation. Just you need to have Java installation in your system. Remaining things I will explain. Anybody, any questions? You can unmute your mic and you can speak out.
Good evening, sir. Sir, Poonam this side.
Yeah, hi Poonam.
Yes, sir. Actually, I send you message on WhatsApp, so I'm waiting reply for that.
Sure. I will check that.
Okay, sir. Sir, actually, on that day you told me that admin will call you, so I'm asking regarding that.
Sure, madam. I will check this.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, madam.
Can you open notes?
1 minute. I'm updating that notes in the portal also. Yes, you can see the notes now.
Hi, sir.
Hello, sir.
In this course, which version we are learning?
First, we will go with Spring 5.0. Then we will go with Spring 6.0 also.
Sir, in company 4 version or 4.x version, if you give me so we can get it.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir, is the course accessible only until the course completion date or post-course completion date for 6 months? Can we still access the course, sir? Just to revise the concepts.
After course completion, next 3 months, it will be available for you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Sir, what are the advantages of using Spring framework?
Yeah, we will come to know that in the coming sessions. Once we start the application development, you will understand the advantages. So if I say loosely coupled, now you may not understand what is loosely coupled. If I say it will take care of dependency injection, you may not understand. Practically, I will explain with the project's development.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
So what is the meaning of end to end? So that means whatever the logics you want to develop for your application, like persistence logic, web logic, front-end logic, everything can be done by using Spring. So whatever the layers you need to develop in the project, every layer can be developed by using Spring framework. That's why Spring is called as end-to-end application development framework.
Means we can develop front end also in this.
Yeah, Spring WebMVC module is available. There you can develop front end of the application also by using Spring. But today people are using Angular React for the front end.
Okay.
We will use Spring for the back end.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, can you explain persistence layers? What is
persistent layer means you know JDBC, na?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, instead of JDBC, I mean JDBC is mainly used for persistence layer. Whatever the logic we are writing to communicate with the database, right? That logic is called as persistence logic. Persistence means database related logic. By using Spring, we can develop that also. Spring Data JPA, Spring ORM, Spring JDBC concepts are available to develop the persistence layer of the application.
Sir, if you use Java 5 or 6,
Okay,
any
sir,
minimum version is there? Java version we need to use?
Yeah, if you go for Spring 4, na, Java 8, you need to use. If you are going for Spring 6, Java latest version, Java 11 or 17, we need to use. I will explain the environment setup part also.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, hi, sir.
Hello,
Hi, sir. Is there any parallel batch going on?
for what?
So that like I want to complete the course early.
No, sir. Parallel batches are not there.
Okay.
Sir, how many Spring modules are covered in this session, sir?
So we are going to learn Spring Core module here, and Spring AOP we are going to learn, and Spring Data JPA, Spring Security, then Spring Boot. Microservices.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello, madam.
Sir, no need to install the software already, no? Means not Java, not Spring Boot also.
Java should be there in your system. Spring you no need to install. Spring is a framework, na? Just jar files we will download. We will use it.
And for the Java, which version?
I will discuss in the class. I will discuss that in the class.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Still, we need to understand
And
some theory
sir,
topics, and we need to. When we develop the application, na, I will tell you which version you need to install.
Okay, okay, okay.
Sir, I have only courses on online course.
Yeah, you can do
Hello,
it.
sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. What is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot? Matlab, Spring and update version Spring Boot are both are different.
Spring Boot is the enhancement of the Spring.
Okay.
Yeah, we will understand. So now if I explain theoretically, you will not get that.
Actually, sir, I complete my advanced Java. Can I understand that
Yes.
Spring Boot?
Yes, you can understand. Now, we are not starting the Spring Boot directly, right? We are going to start the Spring first.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, you will understand it.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Fine, guys. Thank you. So with this, I'm stopping for today. We'll continue on Monday. Tomorrow, no session. We have next session on Monday. Please join the classes from portal. Zoom link will be updated in the portal. Class notes also will be updated in the portal. We'll see you on Monday. Thank you, guys. Good night.